Alright, so what's going on, guys? So in today's video, I'm going to attempt to take the exhaust from the Eclipse and put it on the Galant. If I remember correctly, it should fit, it just needs to be extended a little bit on the backside. So after I get it bolted on, I'll take it either to an exhaust shop, or I might just order that pipe myself and then try to weld it in. Now what you may or may not know is that the Galant and the Eclipse are actually very similar. It's actually built off the same chassis. So a lot of parts are interchangeable. Everything from the engine, the transmission, the steering wheel, the seats, suspension, will all pretty much direct swap. Is I put one of the seats from the Eclipse in to see which one I like better. Obviously the Eclipse seats are designed a little bit different. You sit deeper in them, if that makes sense, and they got a little more bolstering on them than the Galants do. Eclipse seat has a little bit of damage on the driver's side, a little more than I would like. So I think I'm gonna just go with both Galant seats, and I'll take this Eclipse seat back out. It's a direct bolt on. You don't need to swap anything. These seats literally just drop in. So without further ado, let's get started. These are rusted. That bolt actually just snapped off. These are so rusted. Not even on the end that I was taking off. Huh? That's one way to do it. And as you can see, I wasn't really fighting it. I was putting very little effort into doing that. And that bolt just snapped right off. So there you go. And that right there would definitely cause the exhaust leak. Alright guys, so this exhaust is proving to be a bit more difficult than I thought it was necessarily going to be. And it's mainly because of the rust. So the bolts that connect the exhaust to the cat are so rusted that no combination of metric or standard socket or wrench fits. Because it's like so much buildup of rust. I've tried a little bit of WD-40. I smacked it with a hammer to knock some of that rust free, and a lot of it came loose. But what ended up working is I took this 14mm socket, it's what it's supposed to be, and I kind of smacked it onto the socket, or onto the bolt with a hammer. And then I hooked the impact to it and took it off. And like what's left of the nut is actually like stuck inside the socket. This is what it looks like. This is the end that you could see on the end of the socket. So that means this would have been the, I guess the back of it. Like half the nut is actually missing. So now I just have to fight with one more of these, and I can pull the exhaust off and put the new one on. Fortunately, the new one has new hardware with it, so I don't have to deal with this ever again. So here's the other one. This one pulled the whole stud with it, which is actually better. It's almost welded onto the bolt, onto the stud. Look at that. The rust just ate away at that. Now I've got to figure out how to get the other stud out with threading two nuts onto the stud and then tightening it up, and that should loosen it. I have to show you guys what I mean. It's kind of hard to explain. Alright guys, so of course the true nature of any project car is setbacks. So what I found out is once I took the exhaust off, is most of it is completely rusted. So what should have been like an hour-long exhaust swap between the two cars is going to end up taking a lot longer than that. Because when I got up under the car, I noticed that the exhaust is completely rusted. When I was taking it off, I just used a hammer to lightly tap where one of the connections were made, and the thing just popped off. And I assume that's what the exhaust leak was, because it completely separated. So it's kind of a good thing, because that means I didn't have to do any real work to take the muffler off. I just pulled it out of the hangers and it came right off. But when I got to that mid pipe, the long section, it's a completely different story. When I went to take the nuts off of the studs, I noticed that the rust had eaten away at the studs themselves. So like half of the threads were gone. Now, One of the studs, when I went to take the nut off, it pulled the stud off with it. So again, great. That's because that's what I needed. I'm getting lucky. But the second stud was a completely different subject. Again, I got the nut off, left the stud in, and used two nuts and you kind of torque them down together. And then it pulls the stud out when you go to loosen it. But unfortunately, that wouldn't work with this because, again, there wasn't enough threads on the stud. So I ended up welding one of the nuts to the stud in order to get that off. Now I'm going to show you guys what my stud looks like. So this is one of the bolts, or one of the studs. And from this side, it doesn't look too bad. Again, it's got all its threads on there. You can see where I kind of was fighting with it to get it off. But if I turn it over, you can see how the rusted just ate into the threads. And they're completely missing. And the top half of this stud is just as bad. Like, so if you're looking to put an exhaust on a Galant, you'll read that the 3rd gen Eclipse exhaust will fit on it. That's pretty much not true. Like, the bends are the same, but the exhaust actually needs to be extended. Now, I'm not sure if it's because this particular exhaust is like a cheapo exhaust that was on the Eclipse anyway. When I put it on this car, it actually had to be extended on both ends. Like, on the front end, it needs to be extended by like 2 inches, so it actually connects with the cat. And on the back, again, it's about 10 inches short, and that's the part that people normally suggest that you have to extend. So, but again, that's the nature of project cars. You got the unexpected happens. Everything's not gonna go according to plan. That's why people's cars sit up on jack stands for so long. But I promise you guys, that's not what's gonna happen with this. We're gonna keep pushing forward. Cause I gotta get this car up and running so we can keep moving with these projects. Anyway, I'm gonna get under the car and show you guys what I'm talking about. All right, so you can see from the back of the car, it's installed, and it does fit one of the hangers, but it is way up in there. So at the edge of the bumper, that's probably an 8 to 10 inch gap. But can you say that really fits? So here's your cat where it should connect. And if you can see that, that's about 2 inches or so gap between the new exhaust and the cat. So the next logical step would be, of course, to take the stock exhaust, put it back on the car, and then take it to a shop. But the problem with that is, like I said, the exhaust is so rusted, it is pretty much completely unusable. This is what used to be one of the exhaust gaskets. So you can see this hole was completely missing, it's completely rusted off. Like, and these are pretty much gone too. Like, that one's barely hanging on. This one's completely. So this flange, again, I would have to cut this off and replace this with a new one. I wouldn't be able to use this. And of course, the other piece, the long piece, like, and of course, these little stick-looking things, these used to be exhaust studs. And this is a good example of how much damage rust can really do. So like I said, I can't use the stock exhaust. So my only option now is just to get that extra pipe in and try to weld it in, and then take it and get it inspected. I've got to get rid of that. But what I can do, so debadging is actually real simple. And the only thing you'll need is like a credit card or something thin that you can get behind the letters with, like a hairdryer or heat gun, and something to remove the adhesive with, like some Goo Gone or even some rubbing alcohol or something like that. And then it'll get the rest of the adhesive off. All right, so what you're gonna do, what you wanna do with the hairdryer is turn on its highest setting and then sweep back and forth over the adhesive. And after a couple minutes, it should be hot enough where you just be able to peel it off with your finger. So I guess at this point I should add in a disclaimer. Depending on a few things, you may not need the hairdryer. If it's really hot outside, your letters may come off without leaving a lot of residue behind. And if it's a newer car, of course, you shouldn't have as much residue left. But in this case, it left quite a bit behind, and I'm using the hairdryer. And that's why I'm doing this step. So you may not even need a hairdryer. Again, if it's in the middle of summer you're doing this, I say just have a hairdryer just on standby just in case you do need it. You'll see what you need after you've gotten the letters off. So now I'm gonna get the adhesive remover and a rag and just start wiping this down. Is that the paint around the letters actually fade, but the paint behind the letter doesn't. But I should be able to work with this and make that less noticeable. So of course, the older your car is, the more noticeable that'll be. But for now, I'm gonna move on to the rest of the letters, and I'll get back with you guys in a minute. All right, guys, so that's it. So unfortunately, I didn't get the exhaust put on the car, but again, that's what happens when you have project cars, especially cars that, you know, are new to you. You kind of learn about them as you go. Now, as far as the exhaust, I have two options. I'll either take it to an exhaust shop and have them just extend it, or order the pipes and then try to weld it myself. Either way, I'm going to get something done because this thing needs to get on the road so I can start the real build. But anyway, thank you guys for watching my video. Please hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. Drop a comment down below, especially if you own a Galant and what mods you've done to yours. And I'll see you guys later.